after that. All right, welcome to the April 21st Arborist call. Excited to have everyone with us. Depending on where you're at, morning for me, afternoon for some folks, and then evening for others. The agenda is pretty straightforward. It's pretty casual. We like it, interactive and pretty free form, but we kind of have an intro. We do some updates from Zcashd, Zcashd node implementations. And then we have a discussion block where we talk about various topics. Of course, NE5's dominated the bulk of that for the past several months. But on NE5 today, we're like talk about just kind of general development status, current timeline, and then begin to talk about mainnet activation timing discussion. And then wrap up. But we do encourage questions and comments throughout, so you don't have to kind of wait to the end to get your questions in or anything. And we'll move forward. So Arborist calls are all about protocol, R&D efforts, what's in flight, what's being researched, any blockers, coordination between teams that need to come up. We discuss those on here, and the goal is to make protocol development more transparent for people doing protocol development, as well as the community at large that just happen to be interested. Anyone can participate. You can hop on the call and just listen in. If there's something you want to present, just let us know. We'll get you slotted in. Pretty easy to do. We're meeting every couple of weeks now, so we usually have some open time slots. You can email me or contact me in the Zcash R&D Discord. Either way works fine. And with that, we'll shift into the node updates. So over to the Zcash Foundation.
Sorry, Steven. Just to make sure, I would like to make just quick updates after the ZebraD and Zcashd, like maybe before we get into NU5 discussion.
Sure.
In terms of the essays.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. So Conrado, did you want to give us walk us through an update on ZebraD, or someone else from the foundation?
Sure, no, I do it. Thank you. So hi everyone. Basically, this week we released beta 8 of Zebra, which was what we used for the test network activation. So we basically updated all the shared dependencies, REST crates, stuff like that. We had to rush it a little bit because the activation was blipped some days, but everything worked out, luckily, and we managed to cut the release before the activation, and everything seemed to work. So that was we were excited about that, and also about the test network activation itself. So that seemed to went well. So congratulations to everyone. I know that you work hard for that on your side too. And parallel to that, we're still going with the Light WAL-D support, right? So we want to make Zebra work as a backend for Light WAL-D. We finished the address index, which is required for some RPC call. Sorry? For RPC calls. And we also finished the get address balance, RPC, which is one of the calls that use the address index.
Right.
And we're mostly finishing those last RPCs. I think we're almost done. So that's also pretty exciting. And after that, we're not sure. We're planning some other our future work, so we'll share when we decide. We'll share what's on our roadmap. That's
okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Conrado. Okay, I'm actually going to get out of the slide deck. So rather than copy everything into the presentation, I'm just going to go to our release announcement. So that'll be a little bit easier to walk through. So the big thing for us on the Zcashd side is we put out release 4.7.0, which maybe you could argue is the biggest release we've ever done, at least since I've been at ECC. I believe it is the largest release in terms of content and things that went into it. So 4.7.0 enables.
I think it is for the whole time we've been developing.
Okay. Yeah, I was hard pressed to think of one that might have been bigger unless it was related to Sapling in some fashion.
I can think of one, 1.0.
Well,
No,
okay,
because
since launch, yeah.
because 1.0 didn't actually have that many changes relative to the alphas.
Oh, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was trying to cheat.
Yeah. So besides the launch, let's put it that way, I think this may be the biggest release. But it enables full support for the Orchard Shielded protocol and unified addresses on testnet. Unified addresses can also start being used on mainnet, but you can't send funds obviously to an Orchard receiver until NU5 activates on mainnet. Now you can generate a UA with an Orchard receiver in it. You just can't obviously send funds to it until that activation. We reactivated testnet on NU5, which occurred on the 19th of April. We targeted 19th to 22nd, just because we knew that invariably what happens is more hash power hops on, and then it pulls the activation up by a few days, just because the difficulty adjustment algorithm with that much, and it's a huge delta. Like we went from, I don't know, 40 solutions a second to 300 plus. So it was a ton of new info. Strat, I think your hand popped up, so I'll just pause there. And
yeah, just to clarify for those who might be listening to the recording only on audio, you can use unified addresses immediately, but the funds, anything sent to them will, by design, go to the sapling component of them.
Right.
The launching component will start being used from NU5.
Right. Yep. But if you wanted to go ahead and generate one and start, handing it out or using it in places, then when that activation occurs, your funds will just go to Orchard. But yeah, so NU5 reactivated. We had quite the fractured testnet because of a consensus bug we'll talk about in a moment that we've discussed previously. That's all cleaned up, so we should be good on that. The prepackaged binaries are already out. That was, I put that post out last week sometime. I think everyone knows this by now, but if you've been running on testnet, if you were running on testnet above a certain height, 1599200, you'll need to start the first time with Reindex rescan, not all the time, just once. And then we added a bunch of things. I won't go into the details on all these because this is quite long. But essentially, we fixed the consensus failure. Yeah, so I'll move through those. We reactivated testnet. There's the new info from consensus branch ID for NU5 protocol version. Reactivation height has come and gone. So we're good there. We added to the Zcashd wallet, we call it emergency recovery phrases, essentially a seed phrase that you can use to back up your wallet. A lot of instructions there. We've added a Zcashd wallet tool, which allows you to verify that mnemonic, meaning it'll ask you, what's word, I forget exactly there how it works, word 3, word 5, whatever, randomly, so that you can verify. And it does it in a way that is doesn't leak any information into like your bash history or anything along those lines. So yeah, wallet updates, ton of wallet updates, of course. New RPC methods, wallet confirm backup, that's used by the wallet tool primarily, not intended to be used directly by anyone, but we did document it since it's there. Around unified addresses, that flow is you get a new account. So Z get new account, defaults, first one is 0, next one would be 1, etc. Get address for account, so it'd be Z get address for account 0 gives you a unified address. You're able to specify by default, it will give you transparent sapling and Orchard receivers. You can specify, I only want Orchard or whatever. I only want sapling, for example, or I want Orchard and transparent, or whatever combination you want. The default is all 3. Yeah, get balance for account, shows you the total balance, get balance for viewing key. List unified receivers, for a unified address. So you could say, well, here's my UA, what are the receivers? So you can see the individual receivers. We changed a number of RPCs, as you can imagine. List addresses now returns information about the unified address. Dump wallet, export wallet have been updated to, because of the HTC info. Get wallet info, a number of RPCs have been updated to include information about the new Orchard pool, like zlist unspent, zlist received by address, view transaction, get notes count, etc. Export wallet change, as we mentioned, import viewing key. So a number that you can read there. Zget tree state was updated to include information about Orchard. Send many, as you can imagine, because of the considerations around sending to a unified address, and the funds might go to Orchard or they might go to Transparent. So a number of updates here. Yeah, so privacy policy, just to make sure people are aware, hey, you're sending to a unified address that has a transparent receiver. Information could be revealed depending on what receiver they actually use. So we've got some policies that go with send many, so you can send many to make sure you understand that. Let's see, yeah, we'll blow through those. We deprecated a bunch of RPCs. That doesn't mean we removed them and took them out. It just means we have marked them as deprecated, and we have alternatives that we encourage people to use. At some point, these will go away, but just because they're deprecated, that basically means in the help text. Some build system updates, platform updates, dropped Debian 9, added Debian 11. Yeah, so that's kind of about it on that side. So that was a lot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, see if anyone has any questions. Obviously, the blog on 470, or you can look at the release notes. This is essentially a copy of the release notes. Blogs on our electriccoin.co/blog. You get the full info there. So any questions before I move on? There's a ton of work, so.
Just a detail about Zcashd wallet tool. To use that, you have to run Zcashd with the export dia option, so that it knows where to save a copy of the wallet export file.
All right, good point.
But
yeah,
if you forget to do that, it will prompt you to do it.
Right. Okay. Yep, that's a good point, Dara. Okay, other questions from anyone? So huge shout out to the team. The core team did a ton of work to get that ready. Our DevSecOps team did a ton of work to get it packaged up and out the door. So yeah, so just a huge congratulations to everyone involved in that. Okay. Before we get into NU5, then Daniel, you said you kind of wanted to give an update on the work that Kedit's been doing around ZSAs. Oh, let's see. Somebody's got their hand up. So let's see. While we wait on Daniel, Jerome, did you have a question?
Hello. Oh, sorry. I think I might have just hit it by accident, but I do have a question. And it's
sure. Go ahead.
With the recovery phrase on the wallets, is that similar to social recovery wallets, or?
No, it's basically, it's just a mnemonic seed phrase. It's BIP 39 for Zcash, basically.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's up to you how you store that phrase in a safe place. Obviously, it's got to be a place that you don't think anyone's going to be able to steal it, but you know how to recover it.
Okay, understood. Thank you for the clarification.
The important point now is basically that from 470, every key and address generated by Zcashd is derived from that seed. Whereas previously, the transparent addresses, Sprite addresses, which we don't allow to generate anymore, but transparent in particular were just generated randomly as they were in Bitcoin that we forked from. Now everything is tied to that seed. Obviously not if you have an existing wallet, obviously the existing addresses aren't tied, we're not magic, but anything new and for new wallets, everything we connected to that.
Also, when you run Zcashd wallet tool, you will get in the export directory a wallet dump file, which includes all of the keys that are not covered by the mnemonic phrase. and it will tell you whether you need to. Actually, for 470 won't, but eventually it will tell you whether you need to keep that. Whether you're in that situation where you need to keep that file.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jerome. Appreciate that question and clarification. Okay, Daniel, you ready? Give us an update on Kedit and ZSAs.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe first of all, I would like to have, I think Vivek is here. I don't know if Shahaf joined in the end, but if Vivek is here, can you like raise your hand for a second? Because I would like him to introduce himself.
Okay, I see there's multiple Daniels. So
Yeah,
that was my question
Vivek may,
earlier.
for some reason, have my name there, which is weird.
Yeah, I think if they use like when you register for the thing, if you like, oh, here's the link, and you give it to someone else, because you get like a specific link for you. If you just like, oh, hey, join the call, here's the link, they're gonna log in basically with your it's gonna show as Daniel. So let's see.
Good way to replicate myself in the multiverse, in the metaverse.
Right, exactly. Let's see. I'm going to.
Right, yeah. So Shahaf and Vivek.
Okay.
The V and the S. Those are the two that I just want them to introduce themselves, because it's nice that they're here and they're working on this stuff too.
Right. Okay. Let me see. All right. So there we go. I think I'm missing who. Do we have?
Okay, I think the S of the screen is Shahaf. Shahaf, can you hear us?
Oh yes. Okay. I saw the S. I was looking for something like a D for Daniel.
Yeah,
but okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Go.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Shahaf?
I can briefly introduce myself. I've been working with Kedit before, and I've joined the team recently as well. And to work with both Daniel, Pablo, and Vivek, with all of them on the ZSA things. And basically, I think that Daniel can get more into the details about it quickly. But yeah, that's what we've been working on for the past several weeks at least, and if not more. And that's it.
I guess Shahaf is a bit humble because he's got a lot of work on his back in kind of security in Ethereum, and that counts a lot as well.
I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know what exactly to introduce, but yeah, I've been working both on ZK Smart and basically with Kedit on several implementations of circuits and basically on different angles of ZKP technologies, and I've been working also in recent years on Ethereum, on account abstraction, gas abstractions, and different TAPs over there. Yeah.
Thank you, Shahaf. All right. I guess I don't know if Vivek is here in the end or not. Maybe
he is.
Oh, sorry, Vivek. I didn't see you on the screen. Right. I lost the V, and I was like, Vivek is not here. Yeah, Vivek, please go for it.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Vivek, and I'm from India. And I recently completed a master's in computer science from UC San Diego. And now I'm working I'd done some work on zero knowledge proofs and private set intersection, more from the theoretical side. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be working here and helping implement and actually do some stuff in real life, with Kedit and with the Zcash Foundation.
Cool. Very good. You, glad to have everyone involved. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is good news also for the grants program, in the sense that it's also funding newcomers into the space, that have also high quality background and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, we've got a number of the community grants folks on the call. So
amazing.
Yeah, kudos to everyone there. And then this is exactly when we started this. Is exactly the thing that we hoped would. When I say we, I mean the community, the larger we, right? Is to encourage new development around Zcash, new protocol development, bring new people into the Zcash ecosystem. So yeah, congratulations to everyone.
All right. So I'm just going to share my screen briefly. I shared
Okay, sure.
the link. This is the link as usual, the same transferred zip. Just shared it again for purpose of kind of a re-referencing. So some of the changes that we did is kind of we included all the discussion in terms of node splitting, and we clearly expanded the circuit statement specifically, which I would like to go through a little bit with all of you, if that's all right, because I think it's definitely worth getting everyone's input here.
Yep.
Um,
Already have questions ready.
What?
I've already got
Already
some
have questions ready. Yeah.
Okay, keep them at least until I go through a few points. All right, so the first point's kind of, I tried to divide it into like sort of what's the purpose of that set of constraints, right? So the first set is sort of to make sure that the asset type is kind of replicated correctly across all the uses. Well, specifically the old nodes and new node commitments, specifically, you know, by witnessing a single time this type. The second one is kind of similar just for the value commitment to make sure that it's used as a base point of the value in the commitment. And then we have sort of basically this is part of the split, right? Where here, of course, I'm expecting there to be some comments, but roughly kind of what we thought, and I think what we said is sort of have this new variable of whether it's a split or dummy action, which is set to 1 or 0. And so if it's set to 1, then we invalidate the value itself, right?
Excuse me, Daniel. Sorry, can you increase the font like
yes,
2 ticks,
I think so.
maybe? Thank you.
Let me try. Huh, okay, I see. Let me try to see how I can do this because it doesn't let me. There you go. That works?
Yeah, thanks.
No problem. You can do it even more if you want. No, I can't do it even more. So I hope that works. If not, let me know and I'll increase the resolution or something.
Do you have that link you could drop in the chat maybe, when people could just pop it open?
Yeah, sure.
Follow
I'll
along?
do it I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay.
It was already in the chat, I think.
Oh, well,
I think it's in the Discord. I didn't put it in this chat, but I can do it if that's helpful.
Maybe Deirdre put it in the chat.
I put it in there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deirdre. All right. Yeah, so again, the point, maybe I'll take a step back in here because maybe refresh everyone's minds. The point here was that what we were saying is in this split actions, we have one action where sort of there is kind of a real input node and a real output node, but then it's not going to be the same value. So you need to have a second output node or more, but for now, let's just do the second one. And usually what happens in Orchard is you have a dummy input. But in our case, what we wanted to prevent is the prover to be able to sort of mold, like to change the actual base point or the type by making it a non-output of a group hash, right? And so to make sure of that, what we want to do is to actually reuse an existing node in the Merkle tree, but actually invalidating the value so that it wouldn't count as per the value commitments and the balancing of the transaction, right? So if that is a split, then we take V prime, and I didn't write what is V prime, or here should be V prime, right? So basically we're going to substitute in the spec here, you have V old, right? But now we're just substituting that for the sake of the mathematics, right? Like in some sense, this is going to be V prime and some other variable, which is going to be populated by either 0 or V old in the case that it's non-split action. And the path is going to be checked the same. So in the current setting, when it's a dummy input node, you're not checking the Merkle tree path, but here we must check it, right? Now it's interesting because we don't care whether the node has been already nullified or whether the node is actually of the same asset type. We just care, well, we care in the sense like, this is not what's enforcing that. In some sense, it's the value commitment check that's going to enforce that if you don't have the same asset type, it's going to fail. But I'm just making like explicit the point that we're not checking that this input node that is the dummy in the dummy split action is the same asset type as any other one. It's not enforced anywhere except in the value commit check, the binding signature check. And if that confused anybody, just forget about that because it probably doesn't add any intellectual value.
The reason my hand is up is that this is slightly different from what we discussed last time, but I'll wait for you to talk about the rest of it before I go
sure.
into that. Yeah.
And similar to the nullifier, I mean, the nullifier I wrote here because I do have a bit of a question. I want to bring it up to sort of figure out how you guys also think it's best to be done. Like, what's the best way to generate a random nullifier that you don't want to verify necessarily it's random inside the circuit. So here, what we do is just replace row by any random row that's sampled randomly outside, and just making sure that NFold is not already published, right? So that's for the split. We'll get to it in a second, but I just wanted to add we added this extra component here because one of the interesting things that we want to accomplish is this idea of like backward compatibility with current orchard Zec nodes, right? We don't want to have turnstiles. We would like to just consume Zec nodes that in orchard into this proof and just output them with the type in the node as well. Right, to normalize all the nodes essentially, but be able to also read in those orchard nodes. Yes, I think we can open the floor. I think there's enough questions that we can go for it.
All right,
Dara, do you want to start?
See. Yeah, I think Dara's hand was up first. Oh, you're muted, Dara. Yeah.
For the thank you. For the Merkov path validity, did we not say that for Zec notes we wanted it to work the same way as it did before? The reason for that is just that you would have to make a dummy proof to an arbitrary orchard Zec note rather than just allowing the path to be unconstrained as it currently is in the orchard circuit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of an implementation detail.
Not quite. It actually is a problem because for ZSAs, you know that there has to be a well-defined issuance process through which the nodes get added into the tree, and you can only have produced like there is a point at which the asset type gets witnessed in and whatever, which doesn't happen for Zec.
Yeah, the issue
it becomes a bit odd in terms of the way it integrates.
The problem. Yeah, the problem is the how you bootstrap. So if you start with an empty tree, then normally for orchard, the first orchard transaction would have to have only dummy notes in the input.
Exactly.
And there is no minting transaction to mint the token.
But
yeah, I wasn't explaining it well. But that's
fair?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be fair to assume that in the orchard tree, you're already going to have nodes by the time that this is out? Like
that doesn't necessarily apply to a future pool where this occurs. It's for a plain shielding process for Zec notes, sapling, orchard, and future pools. We don't have an explicit mint process. if we make this change, then we are required to have an explicit mint process for ZEC, which I don't think is something that we are going to want to have. Because it's going to require designing the mint circuit to also work for ZEC, which feels like it constrains the mint circuit, because it would then need to be minting subject to the issuance of ZEC and whatever. But it wouldn't be real minting in that sense, versus the ZSA cases where we know the concept we want to handle those, and it's quite different to how ZEC behaves natively.
Yeah, it seems simpler to me to keep the to allow when we know that type P is ZEC, and the value of the note, so v prime in this case is 0, then we allow dummy Merkle path as we currently do in Orchard.
Yeah, you could either frame this as we have the currently is, like, we don't really have an is dummy flag right now. The is dummy flag is just the value of the dummy note that of the input note you're spending is 0. And now we're essentially wanting an explicit flag for, is this meant to be a dummy? And if it's meant to be a dummy, then
well, now we're saying there needs to be 2 flags. First flag is the input node the ZEC node?
You can compute one flag from the other. Because if you, like you said, the type auxiliary input is empty, then by definition, an empty type auxiliary input means it's a ZEC node.
Well, the way we're structuring all of this is that in essence, inside of the circuit, basically custom assets are going to have some different constraints than ZEC assets. So by the first, you need to check, is it ZEC or not? That's the first thing you need to check. That's the first flag. Which it gets a little bit more complex when we do this backward compatibility, but let's put that aside for a second. Like, let's say we identified it's ZEC or not ZEC, right? Like, we're going to take 2 different branches in a way. Of course, reusing gadgets and whatnot. But if now you need to figure out, is it right? Okay, if it's ZEC, then you only need to check the value. Is value 0 or not? That's the usual flag. But if it's a custom asset, you still need to check a new flag to see whether it's not a dummy action, right?
Yeah. Agreed. So you'd either, if it's a ZEC note, then it would either be that you just ignore this split flag, and then just do the existing turn off the Merkle path but leave the nullifier as is, or we could make the split flag just be the dummy flag and make the ZEC enforcement of it stronger than just being a 0 note. You could do it either way. I don't think it really matters too much.
We'll see when the development is there. I think it's going to be best. Yeah.
And even if you ended up having 2 flags, you could. It would be very cheap to just have a simple constraint that says you can't have both flags enabled at once. If that ended up being the easier way to implement it.
Yeah. This actually feeds into my second point, which is, see where you have nullifier integrity.
That was what my hand's for.
Yeah, okay, we've seen the same things.
Is this the comment that you guys had in the Discord a couple of weeks ago? Because I didn't decipher it yet.
Precisely.
Let me explain.
Please go for it.
So it says if split equals 1, let row prime equals random sample. It actually matters that you can't choose a row prime of someone else's note. So that's called a roadblock attack. And let's say, for example, that I publish a transaction that hasn't got into the chain yet. You have the viewing key for an output of that transaction. So you know the note, you know its row value. You now create another transaction with that row value as in a dummy. So now, if that transaction gets into the chain first, you've prevented my note from being spent. In fact, you've permanently prevented my note from being spent. So I will never be.
That's all right. I think I know what you mean. Like in the set, but I wouldn't know. All right. But isn't psi always a new random?
Well, that's precisely the thing here. Psi, it's not a new random when you're spending your node. Psi is a value that is controlled by we assume in the protocol already that it is controlled by the sender of a transaction, i.e. the creator of a node. Once a node's been created, it's fixed. So, the logic for essentially re-randomizing psi is that the protocol already assumes that it can be adversarially chosen. So altering it in a dummy doesn't really affect any of the existing security arguments.
Yeah.
But it has the same effect of re-randomizing the nullifier.
Okay, wait, before we get, I'm sorry, I don't think I got it fully. I mean, let me try to rephrase that. So you're saying that the prover, I'm the prover and I'm sending a split action, and I can basically nullify the node or the commitment or the node commitment of a different node if I know the commitment, which of course it's I can probably choose something and reuse the row and just pick a random psi.
Yeah, well, no, you don't.
But I don't have the NK.
You reuse the psi from the old node. You have the whole of the old node because
sure.
By
true. If I have the old node itself.
Yeah.
If I have the viewing key, but I don't have NK.
That's. Oh no, you have the nullifier because you have the transaction that I sent that hasn't got into the chain yet, and that transaction was trying to spend that node, so it gives the node's nullifier.
But I still don't have NK to verify the nullifier computation inside of the circuit. Oh, but I don't have. Well, I have to because I need to generate the proof.
So, I think a thing here. So the roadblock attack that Dara, as you described it in the Discord channel, was about, in the previous call, what we talked about was actually splitting off the nullifier entirely. And there, the nullifier could then be chosen arbitrarily. So that was absolutely a roadblock attack. You only need the nullifier, and you're not binding it to the nullifier key.
No, I think Daniel is right. If you don't know, if the attacker doesn't know NK, then they can't create the proof, even though they know the nullifier. Yeah.
Right. But there are adversaries who might be in a position to do that.
Wait a minute. NK is in the full viewing key. Yeah.
It's in the full viewing key for Orchard, yes. I would just need to think about whether you'd have to be careful in terms of how it gets used. I can't think of anything that if you're changing, as long as you're changing one of the inputs to the nullifier computation to re-randomize it and not, and you're still required to bind to most of the input, then I think you're generally fine, because then even if you have the full viewing key, you won't have the spending key. The thing that I'm just trying to work through in my head is there any problem in severing this row link in terms of uniqueness? That's really what I care about, because the argument we make in most cases is that we preserve nullifier uniqueness because it is bound to row, and row is the previous nullifier from the previous one, and it's checked outside the circuit.
So I said the attack wrong. There is an attack. Yeah. So the attacker has to have the full viewing key, and it has to observe a spend of the target node. So I'm trying to, let me see. Let me think about this. No, it doesn't have to observe the spend. It only has to observe the receive. But it has the full viewing key for that address. So it knows the note value.
It does need
it can compute
the spend. Why? Okay.
It can compute the nullifier.
But if it doesn't see the spend, I guess
But
you're saying it can view the when it was received.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, yeah, it doesn't even have to be.
It doesn't need the spending key because this is a
It
dummy
doesn't
node.
need to be in a spending situation. If you witnessed any receive, you have the full note.
Exactly.
And you have the nullifying key, so it can be spent. Exactly. You're not spending the money itself. You're just invalidating that person spending that money.
Yes.
That Zec. Got it. And what is the solution there? What would we?
Okay. So the solution, I think, is right. So instead of using row prime in derived nullifier, you use row old. That and that is required to be unique because that's equal to the nullifier of the corresponding spend.
But you're giving up stuff there. You're basically revealing that you have dummy inputs there, and we now need to change the consensus protocol to, well, if you see two nullifiers that are the same, you're going to have that leak.
No, because
if we aggregate it like we do with other components, it's still going to leak some stuff.
No.
And
so the honest sender of a dummy note chooses a different psi. So instead of having row prime, you have
instead of row prime being random.
Yeah, you have psi prime equals random, and now it works because row old is checked to be unique, and therefore you cannot choose the same row as someone else's note. Does that work? Hang on, no,
because you can still.
It doesn't work.
It's
still a roadblock.
I'm actually not sure that the attack you're formulating is possible there. I agree that the original formulation of what we discussed previously of just break the link to the nullifier entirely has a roadblock attack because you can pick whatever nullifier you want and you still know all the other keys for your random note or the note that you're choosing to spend. In this scenario, like I said, even if you know the full viewing key, that allows you to create a proof, but you still need to sign that input of the transaction, which means you would need to know the spending key associated with the note that you are blocking. And the attack that you're describing still requires to know basically have the full note you're trying to spend. And even if you've observed that on the chain, the signatures attest to the inputs and the outputs, the effects of them. They'll include the commitments of the output. So you could take the nullifier, if you had the full viewing key, you could take the full nullifier and things and use it in a transaction, but you'd end up recreating the same effect. So it's not really an attack.
The thing that I was missing is that even for a dummy note, you need a valid spend auth signature.
Yes, which is necessary because outside the circuit, you can't tell what a dummy is and what aren't.
Yeah. Okay.
So Nate's got a hand up.
I
want to get his comment in here or question. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't been tracking all of the details of this, but one thing I'm wondering about or concerned about is relying on security coming from the combination of a valid proof and the outside signatures. Would there ever be any context where someone else may reuse the proofs and proof validation without the extra context of the signatures? Or
think so. There are definitely contexts we want to like when we've talked about sapling, like sapling message signing, quote unquote, where we've wanted to reuse the sapling circuit to do that. And you could, but you'd have to be signing that particular message, and so that just comes down to making sure there's domain separation between what you're trying to sign and the like in this case the zip 244 signature digest algorithm, which there is.
So
The zip 244 is sufficiently constrained that it shouldn't be possible to use it to pretend to sign some other kind of message.
Right. Remember that the spend-auth signatures are signatures over the affecting data of a transaction. So you can only replay them if you have a transaction which has the same effect. And obviously, if the original transaction didn't have dummies, then your transaction can't have dummies.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking exactly of potential use cases like arbitrary message signatures, or
okay.
Basically, if I were showing up and, you know, if somebody has enough motivation to shoot themselves in the foot, but not enough expertise, that's sort of the case I'm worried about.
Well, that just
comes down to I think the answer for that is sort of saying like, do not just use the proof by itself, but the signature in itself. I mean, of course, depends what you're trying to you know, assert by the signature, but if it's just ownership or origin of that message, it probably should be fine as long as you're re-randomizing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. So time check. We got about 7 minutes or so, and then we'll need to shift in. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, you know, maybe if some people here would like to join maybe a different call. I don't want to take up the whole thing. And I know that this can go for a long time. And I also have the issuance zip that I would like to discuss. Yeah. So is it fine if maybe we schedule a call next week? We can also record it. I don't mind. I just don't want to have...
So early next week, because I will be leaving on Thursday.
We can do Monday if it's up to me. I don't have a big issue with that.
I think I have another event on Monday actually as well.
We can schedule this offline.
Can we just, can we just go through
the
issuance?
Coordinate it in the Discord.
But I have a request to record it because I might not be able to make it next week. But I would love to.
So yeah, if you could record it, that'd be great. And just coordinate it in the Discord.
I'll just finish with this. I'll just finish with this one, and then we can do the issuance maybe on that call. And sort of the burn mechanism is actually like cool in some sense. That's part of the transfer mechanism because it's really just an extension of it. But actually, it should be with the issuance protocol. It's like issuance and burn. But essentially, what we realize is that if, you know, in the regular transfer, we forfeited having, I removed it. If you go through it, you won't see it. We removed the value balance for the custom assets. So you shouldn't have it just for transfers. Now, the reason to have it is in order to burn a certain amount of a certain asset. Given the fact that, right, the current value balance orchard for Zec has the purpose of essentially, you know, paying the fee, right, removing some Zec from the shielded pool in order to either pay the fee or move it into transparent or potentially sapling if there is such a mechanism support. But for custom assets, we're not supposed to be, and we're not actually developing or designing any support for sapling shielded assets or transparent shielded assets, which means that the only reason to create a transparent value or to remove from the orchard shielded pool is to actually burn it. And in this sense, it's nice because we're not actually sending some value to an address, the zero address that nobody's supposed to know the the private key or something, and maybe in 50 years we find out that someone's going to become rich. Instead, we're actually just sending it into oblivion, kind of like really just invalidating that amount from being used, right? And the point is just to add to the transaction structure another kind of element that's just a vector of value and type. And in that way, when the verifier of the transaction, the validator, sees that vector, it's supposed to take that vector and just compute these value commitments with zero randomness given the value and the type, right? Just like we do with the orchard Zec one. And that's it. Like it's kind of amazing how quote unquote simple the burning mechanism can actually be when this is in place. Unless I'm missing something, or I we need to think about it. Yeah.
And also, because we still have that piece there, if in future, like, we're not doing sapling or transparent ZSAs, but in future, if we then have orchard +1 or something where we need to migrate out of the orchard pool, we would exactly need these value balance ZSA types to get it out. And we would just, this is all outside the circuit, we just change this to start using those in allowing them to be part of a balance to the next pool. But for now, they just become a,
you can also potentially imagine some kind of wrapped ZSA on another chain, and you would burn it on the Zcash chain and mint it on another chain.
Yeah, and the nice part is that the burn mechanism is actually transparent. Like what time and how much is being burned.
Daniel,
very easy.
There was a question, and the answer is yes on chat. Okay, following the burning mechanism, is it possible to publicly track the total issuance and circulation of a token? Okay, so do you want to answer that? I think that's an important question.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we didn't review the issuance mechanism, but the issuance mechanism is also going to be transparent. Yeah. And so really you can actually track all the issuance for every asset type and all the burn for every asset type. The only kind of issue that we haven't, we kind of figured it out, but we didn't fully reflect it here, is how does someone in, for example, the Ethereum chain, right, the bridge smart contract know who burnt that asset? And I think the answer is sort of as simple as saying, well, the person that's burning just adds their Ethereum address on the memo, or publish a transparent memo of some sort. Maybe we need to add something to that burn mechanism that gives I think that's what we said, to add just an extra kind of transparent memo, sort of like string that just allows you to put any address. Yeah, you don't care to verify that, right?
Yeah, or alternatively, because when you're creating the transaction, the re-randomization that you use for your long-term AK, you can just publish a secondary signature of using the same RK as one of the inputs, over some extra message that could authenticate where it goes to. That partly comes down to how, what the semantics are.
Probably more interaction.
Who in the transaction needs to have authorized it, in a sense.
Well, if you add some field which effectively goes into the binding signature because it's affecting data and all of the auth signatures, then that's authenticating that field.
Yeah, well, by everyone. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. All. This was great.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. So we'll shift gears to NU5, but yeah, Daniel, if you want to just coordinate something in Discord, and then maybe just whatever mechanism you use, just record it. If folks can't join at that particular time, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Overall, this is looking very nice.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited.
Looks good.
Well, I think we're going to start implementing a prototype of this transfer.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Go for it, Steven. All yours.
All right. Excellent. Okay, let me find my screen one more time. There we go. Okay. That is not the right screen. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so sorry for the long version on Roadblock attacks.
I don't know. That's, I mean, this kind of what these calls are for, right? It's to discuss all things protocol. So wherever the conversation goes is, totally fine. So what screen are y'all? Are y'all seeing any screen of mine? Is it
Yeah, the
NU5?
Arborist call presentation.
Okay, so it says NU5, right?
Yep.
Okay, I thought I was on the wrong screen for just a moment. Sorry about that. Yeah, so bouncing along, we've covered this. The new zips for NU5, updated zips. The kind of the current timeline, we're right here. We reactivated on testnet on the 19th. We're on the red dot. Next up for us is release 5.0.0, which would be roughly May the 9th. That's kind of what corresponds to that. What we'd indicated previously was that we targeted an activation mid to late May. It'll be obviously toward late May, just from a timing perspective of getting that out. The 4.7.0 release 4.6.0-2 will EOS halt on the 16th of May or thereabouts. So we'll get 5.0.0 out, plenty of time so people's nodes don't shut down. If we look at calendar, we are here on the 21st. We'll have another Arborist call on the 5th. And would like to do there, obviously we'll have an update on 5.0.0. And we can talk about, looking at what a mainnet activation height, might look like at that point. So anyway, just kind of wanted to get that in front of everyone, kind of to be thinking about as we progress over the next couple weeks, and then coming into the Arborist call on the 5th. That's kind of what we're tracking. So we would get 5.0.0 out roughly, like the 9th or like the 9th is kind of what we're roughly targeting for. We'd have the release candidate in here in testing at that point. So and that was it. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I got that in front of everyone. Any questions or comments about any of that? I think that was my last slide. Nope. Okay, I know on our side we're feeling really good about where we're at now in terms of 4.7.0 being out, the support we have in the field. Obviously, we're working with folks that are testing that out right now. So, but so far so good. We don't have anything major that we're chasing at all to try to pin down. So we'll just encourage people to keep testing on testnet, and of course, 4.7.0 on mainnet as well. So, all right. Questions or comments from anyone? Dodger, hand up.
Yeah, it was highlighted recently that we don't have a name for Network Upgrade 5.
That is correct.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a naming person. I think the action or the thought was that we're running out of names, and let's just start calling them Network Upgrade, N for NU5, NU6, NU7 or something. But so now I see Nate's hand popped up. Nate probably has more background or thoughts.
Yeah, part of the thinking was it might be confusing to folks who aren't like following every detail of Zcash to know, like if people say sprout or sapling or overwinter, which came when. So part of the thinking was just sequential numbers are easier for people to know when they happen. But one terrible thing is that there was the initial release, and then the first upgrade was 0 indexed. So NU5 is sort of like the 7th upgrade. I don't know. It's
6th. It's
kind of a
6th.
mess.
Yeah.
Well, 6th upgrade, but 7th major release. I don't know.
Okay, because you
mess.
count. Okay, yeah, right.
It seems perfectly fine to me. The reason I wanted them to be numbered is, for example, we have sapling shielded protocol and sapling network upgrade, and those are all always getting confused. So I did not want the same thing to happen for Orchard NU5, and in fact that has turned out extremely well. And we are using the term orchard and the term NU5 consistently, and remembering which is which is a lot better than settling.
Yeah, Jessica pointed that out in the chat too. So yeah, good point.
There is a major disadvantage to this though, in that we don't get to have cool T-shirts.
Oh, you can do a cool T-shirt.
Orchard gets a T-shirt.
Or we don't get to have cool, tree themed T-shirts.
Right.
I totally want an orchard T-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I want an orchard T-shirt too.
I personally want an NU5 T-shirt. I'm going to make my own if we don't get one, because this has been such a slog.
So think of it this way: you get two T-shirts. You get an orchard T-shirt and an NU5 T-shirt. So more T-shirts is good.
Right. Yep. And a zebra T-shirt. Yep, 100%. Yeah.
I have a small question regarding the network upgrade and the naming and stuff. Because I'm starting to think about what it's going to look like for ZSAs, or I'm calling them OSAs, just orchard shielded assets, because I feel like it's more specific to orchard than generic. And are we thinking that this is a big enough update to call it NU6, or do we? Of course, it depends on what else there is at that time. Maybe marketing-wise, it makes sense. I don't know what you guys.
Yeah, and anything that changes the consensus rules is a network upgrade.
Right. So timing-wise, it'll just be like, where you're at in development timeline. Like in terms of development complete. As I recall from the thing you put out first, and I haven't been back to that original grant application, but I think it was like 10 to 12 months of development time, 3 months for integration, roughly. So somewhere in the 13 to 15 months overall before we'd be ready to drop into a test net, essentially, environment, right? If I remember
maybe before, yeah, I agree with that. But maybe before thinking about testnet is more like what Nate is just saying in the comment. Like, when are we freezing, for example, the features that should go into NU6, for example? Because we're not the only ones working on upgrading the protocol, right?
Right, and we haven't even had those conversations yet about NU6.
You first want to do NU5 completely.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I
great.
think
but
actually,
obviously we will.
I think actually it was a mistake to try and overlap development of the next network upgrade with completing the previous one, because it doesn't leave us enough time to recover from an upgrade.
Well, yeah, and we definitely need some recovery time here. Strad, your hands up. So.
Yeah, we've had this discussion a bit in the past, and I know, like, for those who weren't aware on that, my position has always consistently been that I want to move to a model where we actually are able to get the candidate features for an upgrade out in a test net that we are actually testing with before we actually commit to getting them in. That has clearly not happened with Orchard, and is not something that we've really happened with in any of the previous upgrades, because you sort of have to have enough lag time to be able to just have enough features and enough people doing things to be able to start getting those features around in time to do that. And actually now we're in a position where we have, like, Kedit working on OSAs, and we have a couple of different teams doing things that could become candidates for upgrades. So I think it's more likely that we'll be able to sort of get over the first hurdle of doing the work ahead of getting it, ahead of deciding what one it goes into, so that then, the way I would like to go things forward is that we always sort of have upgrades going, whenever we have something that we want to get out, but we are able to sort of consistently think about what's actually going in, rather than having to do, decide when it's going to happen and then having to do most of the work, and in particular discovering things that affect the way in which we may have chosen to deploy it, which I think has been for me at least, the biggest learning point out of NU5 has been with hindsight now, there are definitely ways I would have broken it down further. in terms of deployment strategy. So I would like to try and learn from those learnings and make it easier on us all going forward. So to that effect, I would really like to delay the selection of NU6 things until we actually have some decent candidates in a form that's like not just on paper.
I think it was in this sense, Strike is sort of thinking, let's, in a rolling basis, we have a list of features, but in a rolling basis, we add them. And at some point we will say, well, now we can freeze them because we've tested these and we know that the path to actual mainnet is shorter than a year of work.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of
so
sense.
like once we are done with our post NU5 break, one of the first things I want to actually get in and reliably into Zcashd is a nice, easy way for people to deploy features within Zcashd, like candidate things. So like people can start developing and actually merging into Zcashd potentially changes related to features that we are considering in that sort of like candidate phase of like, yes, this is like, we've decided this is going to go into some network upgrade. So let's start getting the pieces in there in a way that's walled off from the consensus rules, but that on a test net you can enable and start playing with. Which essentially, front loads the get it into Zcashd and figure out the problems ahead of time work. And then hopefully then it becomes even easier. And when we decide, yes, we're committing to this, we're feature freezing, the definition of the feature is complete. And then it just becomes, when do you turn it on?
All right.
Nate, I saw your hand pop up earlier.
Strad kind of covered it, and also Daniel, like the beautiful dream of what if we have a bucket of features that are already mostly mature at the time we're deciding when and what should go into an upgrade, and we can just be like, let's do these three. Integrating them will take a few months. That would feel a lot better. I think it can go too far the other way, maybe like Bitcoin Core, where I've seen like people advocating for bits and they have like all of the implementation and design done, but there's no movement. I don't want to go that far. But a good middle ground would be nice. Yeah. I also noticed there's another hand.
Yeah, Jerome, you had your hand up again?
Yeah, I did. Thanks. I have two general questions. The first one would be, would you guys be able to share the Discord link with me?
The R&D Discord link, I put it in the chat, but I may have not sent it to everyone. So let me get that back. I think I probably, I think I did.
The Zoom will sometimes change based on
it kind of defaults,
message,
defaults
what
to
your
who the
messages
messages go to. So right there you go. There's the Discord, the R&D Discord link. Yeah.
Awesome. And then the other question that I wanted to just ask is just like, in terms of just like staying up to date and contributing to the community, what's the best way to go about that?
Excellent question. So from a protocol perspective, like we do like the bulk of our ACE coordination through that Discord, R&D Discord that I put out. In terms of like general community involvement, there's obviously the Zcash forums that are run by the foundation. And then we've mentioned a couple times like the Zcash community grants program. So depending on the level of involvement you wanted to get into, if you had an idea for, something that's beneficial to Zcash, you could, I'd encourage you to look at like some of the grants that people have already got, see if there's something you might be interested in doing in addition to that or similar to that, or a net new idea. And you could obviously submit a grant for application for consideration.
Yeah, I was actually looking through the grant foundation, and I have a couple ideas. I'm just trying to fine tune them. And then just like in terms of like, this is just like a separate one in terms of just like let's say like mining with like Zcash within that community. Is that a need right now or not really?
Well, to mine Zcash, you need to have an ASIC, pretty powerful ASIC to be able to mine. Hash power at the moment for Zcash is at, I believe, an all-time high, quite honestly. So they're, both Bitcoin hash power and Zcash hash power, and a number of other coins. When there was a ban in China on mining, there was kind of but it's kind of largely recovered and gone and surpassed the levels of hash power at that point.
Okay, and having more miners, would that be beneficial to just the network and how it scales and usability?
I mean, it wouldn't affect the usability, no.
Yeah, not usability.
Yeah. No, the kind of stuff, if the kind of things that would be useful for helping scale the network, to be honest, are UX things. Wallet work, usability work on documentation and APIs and user interfaces, and people being interact through merchant APIs. I know there was one grant that was potentially looking at one particular integration. Like that kind of utility to me is the sort of thing that's more likely to help things to the point where we even need scaling solutions. Adding mining isn't going to affect any scalability problems in any way. And as far as the fundamental scaling things go, similarly, it wouldn't affect them. That kind of stuff is just more low-level R&D that would need to happen, when we get to the point of needing. And that's kind of like the Halo 2 stuff that we're deploying in Orchard is like the first steps towards enabling that kind of baseline scalability.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And yeah, that was kind of just the general consensus. And I'm still kind of just learning, just the the back end stuff right now. But just super interested and kind of just looking for ways to contribute.
Very nice. Well, thank you. We appreciate that, and yeah, glad to have more and more people onboarding into Zcash, plugging in the community and the development level and everything. So yeah, let us know. I mean, join the Discord, and there's a bunch of different rooms or channels or whatever you call them in Discord in there, where we talk about Halo or node development or call planning, for example.
Libraries and some such. Yeah, if there's a thing that you feel doesn't have an area, we can make channels for that. But yeah, that's the main touch point for development level collaboration.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
The Dodger. Yeah. Thanks, Jerome. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dodger.
The other thing I would say for non-development stuff, I would say that the forums are a good place to start. But the thing I wanted to just point out is that we have announced the dates and location for Zcashd. It's going to be in early August in Las Vegas. We decided to move it to the continental United States because of the risk of logistics being disrupted. So yeah, go to the Zcash Foundation website or its social media accounts to find links to. We're operating as we have in the past, a system where you apply to attend, and then if you're accepted, you'll then receive a formal invitation. So it is invite only, but anybody can apply to be to come.
Right.
And we also have scholarships available for academic folks who are interested in attending.
All right. Very good. And yeah, so the link is now in the chat too. zfnd.org/zcon3.
And it will
you
be
can Google
super
it. You can
awesome
Google
and fun.
Yeah. You can just Google it as well. But no, this will be my first in person. So I mean, since I've been at VCC, one was canceled because of the pandemic, and the second one was, okay, we know we can't get together in person, we'll have it virtual. So I did attend that one virtually, but not it'll be in person. So I'm pretty excited. Cool. All right, very good. Well, all right, we're right on time exactly. So I'll let everyone, we'll let everyone get on with their day. Thanks so much for all the great conversation and updates from all the teams and all the great questions. So y'all have a good rest of the day.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah.